Kykar Winds Fury EDH deck tech. Please be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Kykar costs 1 generic mana, a blue, a red, and a white, for a 3/3 flyer, which reads, whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create a 1/1 white creature spirit token with flying. It also has sacrifice a spirit to add red mana. So I would rank this deck at mid-power, meaning that it usually threatens to win at around turn 7 and can grind out. So it's still a casual deck, but it's a little stronger than your average deck. The main win condition of this deck involves Elsha of the Infinite and Sensei's Divining Top, and our commander, Kykar Winds Fury. The way this combo works is that we need to have Elsha of the Infinite on the field, and Sensei's Divining Top on the top of our library, and Kykar also on the field. We cast Sensei's Divining Top, triggering Kykar, and create a spirit. We then activate Sensei's Divining Top's tap ability to draw a card and then put it on top of its owner's library. Then we sacrifice the spirit for 1 red mana to recast the top with Elsha of the Infinite. Now we're back at our beginning board state, except we drew a card. We can do this infinite times to draw out our library. So that's the main win condition, and we have Idyllic Tutor as a way to tutor for it. We also have Ignite the Future and Windfall and See the Truth as large draw spells, which we can use to dig into our combo. So this deck is really a control deck. It's looking to try to control the board with a suite of counter spells like Unwind, Narset's Reversal, Counterspell. Discontinuity can act as a counterspell since you can cast it in response to a spell, but you can also use it to just end an opponent's turn, which can be devastating. Dispel, and Dovin's Veto, and Thassa's Intervention. We also have a good amount of removal in the form of Swords to Plowshares, Leadership Vacuum. Leadership Vacuum is actually one of my all-time favorites, because not only does it draw you a card, but it also forces them to pay commander tax. And we also have Disenchant as more removal. So that's really our interaction suite, and it should be enough to hold down the fort in most casual games until you can go for the combo. We also run Propaganda and Ghostly Prism, Smothering Tithe, and Rhystic Study as some light stacks effects. These don't really stop your opponents from casting spells, but they do help you a lot. And they do help you by either stopping your opponents from attacking to try to pad in your life total, by drawing you cards, or creating more mana. We also have a pseudo stacks piece called Quiet Contemplation. It's 2 and a blue and reads, whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you may pay 1. If you do, tap target creature an opponent controls, and it doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step. This is very good because we have like nearly 80 non-creature spells. So if whenever we're casting a non-creature spell, we're just locking down one of our opponent's permanents, it could be devastating for them and could stop most of their big creatures, especially if they're a tap-on-tap deck, which relies on their creatures which tap for an ability. This would include decks with a lot of mana dorks and Arcanus the Omnipotent. So let's look at our creature suite. It's pretty limited, but we do have some very important creatures. These include Talvand Sky Summoner, who says, whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, create a 2/2 Drake. We have nearly 22 instants and sorceries combined, so he can start churning out Drakes, and that can act as a secondary win condition if our main win condition does not work. Elsha of the Infinite is included because it can be a draw engine because of all the non-creature spells we have, and because of the Sensei's Top combo I mentioned before. Dockside Extortionist is in here because it costs only 2 mana and can make a lot more mana. and even in casual table, your opponents should have a good amount of mana box. Cackling Drake is in here because it not only replaces itself by drawing a card, but like I said before, we have 22 instants and sorceries, so it could quickly become big and start beating down your opponents. We have Clever Impersonator to mainly just copy whatever our opponents have. It can be good to copy a Dockside Extortionist. If your opponents have a lot of tokens, we can use that to make more mana. Just Cloud effects are very versatile and just pretty good. It's also non-land permanent, so we're running some very powerful artifacts like Aether Flux Reservoir. So if you copy an Aether Flux Reservoir, you're doubling the clock. We also are running enchantments like Ghostly Prison, which if you double up, it could stop your opponents from attacking you ever. Our ramp package includes Soul Ring, Talisman of Conviction, Talisman of Creativity, Azoya's Signet, and Arcane Signet. We also have Primal Amulet as a pseudo ramp spell. I know it's only 6 ramp spells, which might seem a little on the low side, but Dockside Extortionist can act as a ramp spell, and our commander is essentially a ramp spell. Oh yeah, if I did not already mention, the ways we can win after drawing most of our deck is by either casting Saheeli, Sublime Artificer, to create infinite servos, and then we could leave one creature, one card left, so then we can pass the turn, and then when it gets back to our turn, we can attack with infinite creatures, or we could just cast Aether Flux Reservoir and blast everyone to death. So I think I did not mention that, so I'm mentioning it now. So let's look at our Planeswalker suite. We have Saheeli mainly because it can turn certain artifacts into other powerful artifacts, which is very good. It could also churn out 1/1 servo tokens with the amount of non-creature spells we have in our deck, and it also acts as a combo enabler. We have Val Storm Conduit in here because he could copy powerful instant and sorcery spells, and can also ping an opponent's Planeswalker while doing that. He's also a good value engine because he could scry 1 and accrue loyalty. Then we have another Val named Val Zarek, whose +1 is to tap target permanent and untap another target permanent. So we can use him to tap down our opponent's blockers and also untap our lands, so he also ramps us. His -2 is to deal 3 damage to any target, which can be used as removal, and his -7 can give us 2 to 3 extra turns, which should be game ending. Narset says each opponent can't draw more than 1 card each turn, and this can be devastating for some of our more card draw oriented decks like Korvold, etc. Its -2 can also help us find non-creature spells, and it also has a soft combo with Windfall, because if we have Narset out and we cast Windfall, each player will discard their hand, and let's say someone had 6 or 7 cards in their hand, we would draw 7 and they would only draw 1. So if you get to that point, you are very ahead and you should be able to win that game. So both of these cards are good by themselves, but they're even better while combined. We also have a good amount of tutors to find our creatures and important pieces. Unbreakable Formation is in here because our deck is really reliant on its tokens, which is made from Kykar, which we could kind of save up until we win. We can also use Dragon Shift to turn all of our tokens into 4/4s, which can kind of help save us from Pyroclasms. So these two are our main board wipe protections, but if your opponent has a board wipe, it can be really bad for you. So if you have a big board state, I would either try to find one of these two, or try to hold up a counterspell like Dovin's Veto or Dispel. So then you could keep your board state. We also have Myth Realized, which is kind of an odd choice. Most people don't play it. But you could play this on turn 1, and it just accrues lore counters. And you could also just pay 3 mana to straight up give it a lore counter. And it could really start to become a big evasive threat late game. So, last but not least, let's look at our land base. Our land base consists of a few a few bounce lands. I chose to include these because they can draw you a card early game, and they also give us good fixing. These are the three. But if you play them turn 2, it could lead to you discarding a card, so they are a double-edged sword. We have Steam Vents as a good mana fixing land. We have Temple of Epiphany, even though it enters the battlefield tapped, it lets us scry 1. We have Mystic Sanctuary to get back get back instants and sorceries. We have Evolving Wilds and Fabled Passage as more fixing. We have